Hey folks, Jen Green here from Property House. Thanks so much for joining us today. You see next to me Jason Roberts of REI Blueprint. I'm super excited to have him on today. He has been a coach and mentor of mine for about the last 2 years, and it's been a real joy to learn from him and be part of the REI Blueprint coaching group. So we're going to be talking today about, taking a deeper dive into what it means to build a good team. And the reason I wanted to do this again today with Jason is because he and his partner, Rachel Schneider of REI Blueprint, who I interviewed earlier during the coronavirus pandemic about building a business that works for you instead of, that works for you versus your business running you. And it's really important to really take a look at that because they've run teams anywhere from 5 people up to over 100. And I think there's positives and negatives to that, and so we're going to dive into that today. But for those of you who don't know me, again, my name is Jen Green. I'm part of Property House here in the Twin Cities Metro in Minnesota. We are able to help out folks who are looking to sell their homes quickly, whether it's a divorce, a bankruptcy, a foreclosure, any of those situations where you're looking for a non-traditional sale off market for either cash or terms. We always present 3 different options to you. You get to choose which one works best for you. And then we make the transition of that real estate as easy as possible for you. So I want to welcome you, Jason. Thanks for joining me this morning.
Thanks, Jen. Appreciate you having me. It's good to see you.
You too. So, to kind of dive into, I honestly feel like this is one of the biggest views that I had was really about building a good business team, and just some of the feedback that I got from folks of, private messages or emails was kind of asking a little bit more of a deeper dive into it. And I thought you would be, a really good point person for this. And so this is why I wanted you to come on. So I thank you for joining me.
Absolutely.
But, the last time I was on, I said, 5 different steps of building a team, which was, finding that unique genius zone. So finding what it is that you're best at, and then making sure you try to stay in that lane as best as possible. And then finding complementing personalities to finish out your team, making sure that you have the right person in the right seat, building that loyalty and trust, belief in your core mission and belief system, and then a similar, vision of what the long-term goals of the company are. And so, we talked a little bit, obviously, before we went live here, but what do you feel like, out of those things, and in addition to that, are really kind of what it is that builds that, that good team?
Yep. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. This is a topic that I love to discuss because to me, I've screwed this up so many times and made so many mistakes. I don't know that I'm the expert at it, but I think that when you mess things up enough, you learn what doesn't work. And then by default, you start to learn what does work, right? After 20 years of being an entrepreneur and starting different businesses, in the last 5 or 6 years, we've gone outside of real estate and invested in other companies and built other companies up. So I've gotten to kind of see, firsthand the mistakes that we made in the past. And, you referenced the 100 people. We had a mortgage company that grew really, really big. And I had teams and a lot of people and a lot of employees, but I was an absolute slave to that business. I was there at 5:30 in the morning and I left at 11 or 12 o'clock at night. I felt like I had to be the first one there, the last one to leave. I felt like I had to hover over the top of it or it would fall apart. And, you mentioned the unique genius zone thing and staying in your lane and doing what you're great at. I didn't, for the first 12 years of being an entrepreneur, I didn't understand that concept. No one had taught that to me. I didn't know it. And so I was in every lane. I was in every single lane, in every lane that I didn't belong in. I was managing things that I was not good at. And I had world-class people that had I just empowered them and enabled them, we would have grown exponentially bigger, exponentially faster. But I didn't do that. I was so controlling, and not controlling in a bad way, controlling because I'm like, this is my life. This is my business. And at the end of the day, the buck stops with me. So I've got to make sure that everything is right. Unfortunately, by doing that, we're not good at everything. There are some things that I'm really, really good at. And there's a lot of things that I'm really, really terrible at. And I think what I've learned differently in the last 7 or 8 years that I didn't the first 12 is, building the business in a way where you're in your lane, you're doing the things that you're good at, and you find complementary people that have a complementary skill set or A players in that certain category, and you let them be A players. You don't control them and micromanage them. You let them be A players.
Right. And so, I mean, you had those teams, right, of 5 people up to 100 people. Do you feel like there's a difference when it comes to how you operate if it's a small team versus a bigger team?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just the overall quality control of it. We have a small team now. I mean, we employ a lot of people through a lot of different companies, but as far as our team that actually runs things, there's 4 or 5 of us. We just had a company meeting yesterday, and as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about how drastically different this company meeting was than how, our old company meetings was basically Jason giving an hour and a half long presentation of this needs to happen and this needs to happen and this needs to happen and we need to do this. And it was very much, I don't want to say dictating because I'm not that guy, but it was very much me running 95% of it with 5% input. And it's drastically different today. I mean, if anything, it was 95% my team running it and 5 or 10% input from me, which I loved. And it's so much better and so much more organized. And I can, if you've ever read the book, The E-Myth, it talks about entrepreneur, manager, technician, and you need all 3 of those if you're going to have a successful business, but no one is inherently all 3 of those. Right. And you're not just the entrepreneur because you own your own business. To me, it's almost an inborn skill set of one of the 3, and none of them is better than the other. Like they don't, if you're an entrepreneur by yourself without the manager and technician, you're going nowhere, and vice versa. So you kind of need all of those things. And back to your lane piece, I land in the entrepreneur world. I can be a task manager. I can run homeowner appointments. I can meet with customers, and I actually enjoy it for a period of time. But in the long haul, that's not the place for me to be.
Right. I mean, and the thing that I've also kind of learned along the way is as your business grows, your, not necessarily your input, but your influence more or less becomes less important, right? Like when you're starting your business and it's starting to grow, you're really kind of taking on everything. You're doing everything. And as that team builds, your kind of importance level goes down, right? And your
Absolutely.
team then really is going to be the ones that are carrying your business more or less. Do you agree with that?
Yep. Yeah, totally agree with it. And when Rachel and I get a new business idea, we do this thing now called the business breakdown. It's just kind of what we coined it. And I've got this big 16-foot glass whiteboard over here to the left, and we'll map it out from start to finish. But the thing that we do differently now is to your point, what I see almost every new entrepreneur do, every new business owner that's transitioning out of corporate America or, into a business. When you're at your day job, there's departments, there's a marketing department, there's a payroll department, there's a sales department, there's, process, whatever different departments your company has. And you more than likely work in one of those departments. But for whatever reason, when we transition, we don't duplicate that structure that works. We create this new structure that says, Jason is payroll. Jason sweeps the floors. Jason takes out the trash. Jason orders supplies. Jason does marketing. He's in charge of sales. He does payroll and bookkeeping, and we can't get traction, and we can't grow and scale like that because we're number one, there's not enough time in the day, and number two, we're just not good at all those things. So one of the things that we do now when we look at a new business is we map it out from start to finish. What needs to happen in this business on a daily basis in order for it to be successful, and what different departments do we need within that business in order for it to operate to be successful, and then what sort of staff would we need. And by doing that, I'm thinking about it objectively, as almost as if I was a business consultant for your company. I mean, I'm not employed by your property company, so I can look at it objectively from the outside in and say, we need this person to do this. We need this person to do this. And I'm not assigning myself any of those roles because I live in St. Louis and I can't, you know what I mean? But for whatever reason, when we do our own companies, at least in the beginning, until we learn this, we assign ourselves all of those positions, and then it becomes stressful and overwhelming. And then we give up and say, this didn't work,
Right. I mean, and so I was on your podcast last night, and, I have to thank you for that. That was a wonderful experience, by the way. But, one of the things I think that you said that I did right, at least, was that I hired an assistant right away, right? Because we tend as entrepreneurs to wear too many hats for way too long. And like you said, then you get overwhelmed and say it doesn't work. So what do you think are some of those warning signs or, best practices of when you should start hiring people? Like, how do you know when to do that?
Well, I love that you grasped that right out of the gate, because 99% of new entrepreneurs, new investors, new business owners don't. The last thing on earth they think they should do is incur an additional expense right off the bat. In their mind, it's like, well, let me get started. Let me make some money first. Then I'll invest in a team. Then I'll invest in a mentor. Then I'll invest in whatever. And the problem is that it's completely freaking backwards. If you were, people say, hey, if Jason, if you got dropped off in Phoenix, Arizona, and you had not $1 in your wallet and you had no resources, no team, no nothing, you just got let off a bus and you had to make $100,000 in the next 30 days, what would you do? And I would do exactly what Jen Green did. The very first thing that I would do is hire an assistant. I would hire someone that could assist me in what I'm trying to do and assist in the things that I'm terrible at. It's going to take me 10 times the time to do, to pull data and get it organized in a spreadsheet and get it uploaded into a CRM and all those things. And there's probably somebody out there for $10 an hour that could do that in a couple of hours a week. And it would be a week-long process for me, So that's important. One of the best things that I have learned, especially coaching people all across the country, it's kind of like being a doctor, right? You get to see all of these symptoms. You get to see businesses that work at a really high level, and then you get to see ones that struggle and fail, and you start to see what causes all of that. And a big part of it is the team. And so I have always had this rule that if a week into it, 2 weeks into it, your response to someone around you or to your husband or your wife or your team, you know what I mean, or your mentor, whoever, is, man, I just don't know. We hired Julie 2 weeks ago and I just don't know if she's the right one. And immediately to me, it's fire her, duplicate the process, and not from a rude, mean place, but the response that I should hear is, oh my God, Julie is freaking amazing. I don't know what the hell we did without her. She is brilliant. You know what I mean? That's the response that we should get. And people inherently will say, yeah, but it's probably my fault. And I didn't spend enough time training her. I didn't spend enough time doing this. And I need to work with, she doesn't know. In my experience, really good people figure it out. And whether they know it or not, they figure things out. Think about yourself. You threw yourself into this real estate world. And at the end of the day, you figured it out. You didn't sit around and wait for someone else to figure it out for you. And so I want to build a team that operates the same way, right? I want to build a team that when we bring somebody in 2 weeks later, we're saying, hey, she may not understand the mechanics of real estate, but she is freaking amazing. She's on top of everything. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It does. And you kind of brought me into that next question, which was, what are some of those warning signs that, it's really great to hire people, but the truth of the matter is that everybody that you hire is probably not going to be that great. And they're maybe not that they're not a good person, but they're maybe just not a right fit for your business. And so, one of the things that you guys have always said is, give a trial period. If they meet or exceed your expectations, they might, they are the right fit. If not, you hire, quick to fire, more or less, right?
Yes. And I've always, I think most people have the mentality of, I'm going to hire somebody and try to find this right person and then I'm going to be latched onto that forever. You know what I mean? Or I hire somebody, they're not the right person, but I don't want to fire them. And so you drag this process out for 6 months with the wrong person, which is more detrimental. I'd rather have no person than the wrong person. And we drag it out forever. And then we get frustrated and say, this doesn't work. I would encourage you to think about your office team like you would think about an NBA basketball team, right? What does an NBA basketball team constantly do? They're constantly looking to acquire new and better talent, right? Now, every once in a while they get a player and that player stays on the team for 15 years, but players get traded. They get bones broken. They get injuries. There's a new draft. They're sending scouts out to see who's coming in next. it's a never ending process of constantly upgrading their team, making it better, making it perform better in all the different positions, right? I mean, they're looking at their center, they're looking at their forward, they're looking at how they work together. What if we took this person from this team and put them on our team and got rid of this one? Would we be better? And so I think that to a degree, we have to look at our business that way. You know, I've got a good friend that runs a company with 1,200 employees, and they hire 50, 60, 70 new people a month. They just hired over 200 people in the last 30 days, 200. But the point is that they have an entire department dedicated to talent acquisition. They're constantly hiring and leveling up their team. You know, if you ever read about Jack Welch, he's one of the most famous, well-respected CEOs in the history of the world. And he ran GE, all the GE brands. And they had a rule there that every year they terminated the bottom 10% of their company. And they had all these metrics that they tracked, but the culmination of all of those metrics, the bottom 10% got replaced every year. And people look at that and say, that's rude and that's mean and that's this. But yet when he was reigning over GE, they were one of the most profitable and successful companies that there was. So I'm not saying that, I mean, I'm very much about loyalty. I love my team, and I would prefer to never have to get rid of anyone. You know, I mean, it's like a family for us. We're a small team. So I see these people every day. I hang out with them. They mean a lot to me. At the end of the day, it's tough sometimes, but we've all got to contribute. We've all got to carry our weight, and we all need to be an A player in our department.
Right. And, you know, thinking about that too, I mean, I just had one of my colleagues, Celie, just commented, and she said, you know, it took me a long time to hire someone part-time to at least deal with my technology. She said, hire someone for the things you hate to do.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
you know, I mean, that's the reality of it. If you don't like something, you're not going to do it, and you're not going to do it well. Right.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah. And just as a reminder for folks too, if you guys do have questions for Jason, I mean, please feel free to post them on here. I can see everything, and you know, we can ask him those questions while we're on the live. If you wait until later, you're not going to be able to ask him. So ask away. We'll just keep talking here. I do have a few more questions before we get to the end of this, but you know, you've had, like you said, I mean, quick to hire, quick to fire, but then you also have people that have stayed with you for a really long time. I mean, Jana started out kind of, you know, writing letters for you guys, and now she's pretty much running your companies. So what do you think it is that really kind of sets that expectation and builds that family of wanting her to stay as long as she has?
That's a great question. I don't know why she stays here.
Me neither.
Jana is remarkably brilliant. She's one of the coolest people that I've ever met in my whole entire life. And you're right. You know, when we brought her in, it was to do a little bit of, 5-10 hours a week worth of marketing stuff. She didn't want a job. You know, she was stay-at-home mom, and her husband worked full time, and she didn't need the job. You know, it was something that I think for her was some adult interaction, some, get out of the house and contribute to a team. And, you know, I remember the interview that I had with her. It was somebody who used to work for me actually in the mortgage business, said, hey, if stop by and see me, and said, hey, if you need somebody to help, you know, around the office, I've got this really great person. I'm like, sure, send her in. And I remember when she came in, I'm a mess, and I didn't really want to deal with it at the time. And so I had this list of shit of, 3 pages worth of stuff, 3 weeks worth of work that needed to get done, things that detail related stuff that just wasn't finished. And I remember thinking, I don't have time for this interview. And so I literally handed her this crap list, handwritten list of stuff that needed to be done that was outstanding tasks. And I said, you know what? Here's the interview process. Take this with you and do these things. And when they're done, let me know. And that was kind of it. And I remember thinking, which is not the right way to do it. But I remember thinking to myself, there's no way this is going to get done. And in my head, it's 2 or 3 weeks worth of work. And this was in the morning. It was 8 or 9 in the morning. And I remember like 2:00 in the afternoon, she calls me and says, hey, it's Jana. Jana, she's always happy. She's always upbeat. It's like, hey, I just wanted to see if there's anything else you needed me to do. And I'm instantly pissed off because I'm like, yeah, the whole damn list, that big long list I gave you, like, that's what I needed you to do. And she responds back and she says, oh, I got all that done. I was just seeing if there was anything else you needed me to do. And there was no explanation. She'd never been in real estate before. Yeah, right. And I'm like, what do you mean you got it all done? And she said, well, there's a couple things that I need to run by you because I didn't know what they meant, but I did this and I did this. And I'm like, unbelievable, like instantly mind blown, right? Like this. And she never stopped. I mean, she never stopped amazing us still to this day. I just am more and more impressed and more amazed with every single thing that she takes on and handles, with very little guidance or direction. I mean, she asks, what's your vision for this? What do you want it to look like? But I mean, there are times that I interact and talk with Jana on a daily basis, but there are times that I don't advise her for months. You know what I mean? Like she's thinking on her own. She's thinking about what comes next. Okay, he wants to go here. What's the 20 things that need to happen in order for that to take place? And I just think that is such a valuable thing in a team member and somebody that's going to help you grow and operate a business. And there are roles for people that knock tasks out of the park, but they need daily direction on what those there's a spot for that, but that's probably not the person who's going to help you run your business or help you run your company.
Right. So do you feel it's kind of like certain expectations for certain positions that you're setting so that, when you hire folks, they know exactly what it is that's there, and then it's just, those extra expectations can grow or change over time. But again, like you said, there's certain roles for people that are, doing the task-oriented jobs, and then others that are going to help you grow your business. So they're two very different people. It sounds like what you're saying.
I think it's very different people. I think I got lucky because I originally hired someone in a task-related role, but that person had a far greater skill set than what I originally hired them in at. And you know what I mean? I didn't think at the time that in a couple of years, the person that we hired to do some marketing stuff would be running several of our companies. Really. I mean, that's the truth. So, but it's taught me a lot in being able to identify some of those skill sets, some of those traits, some of those things that, she inherently has that did not come from me teaching it to her,
Right. Yeah. No, and that makes sense. And sometimes you just have to find that diamond in the rough sometimes, and you get lucky. I mean, I feel like that way with Hannah. So she's my Jana.
Yep. Well, and now you have a sounding board, right? Now you have something measurable and you might have had to go through 8 people to get Hannah. And if that's the case, get through those 8 people as quick as you can, because there are remarkable people out there that are looking for work, that are looking to be part of a good team, that are looking to have good leadership. But if you stop at one, if you stop at the first bad apple that you get, you never get there. And then, like I said, you get frustrated, overwhelmed. It's not fun for anybody to fire anybody. I mean, you know what I mean? It's not a pleasant thing, but you also don't have to make it a bad thing. It's not a you're terrible, you're done, you're fired, get the hell out of here. Like you see on TV. I mean, it's hey, love you, loved having you here. But I think we're going in a different direction and this just isn't making sense. And you know what I mean? Be done with it. Get somebody else in the spot, try it again, get somebody else in the spot, try it again until you land on the one that, like I said, a week or two into it, you say, this person's a freaking rock star. Like that's what you should be saying.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, we're kind of getting close to our time. Do you feel like any, parting advice, 1 or 2, 3 different things that would really just give somebody a jump start if they're really looking to grow their business?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that I would say is maybe do that business breakdown exercise, like get a big whiteboard and just write out just brainstorm every possible thing that you think needs to happen in order for your business to be successful. Right. And then step 2 is organize it into departments. So once you spit everything out and all these tasks, try to organize it as if it was at the company that your 9 to 5 is. And what department would that fall into? Would that fall into the marketing department? Would that fall into the sales department? Would that fall in, you know what I mean? And start to organize those things where they belong. And then look at your resources, look at yourself. Where of all these different departments on all these different things, where am I good? Where am I the best? What do I enjoy doing? What do I succeed at typically? And let me own that lane. Then we need to decide, okay, how are the rest of these things going to get done? And, you know, I get that it's scary sometimes to say, well, I'm just now opening my business and I'm going to hire somebody. But the reality of it is you can find some extremely brilliant people for 10 to 12 bucks an hour that want to work 5 hours a week. And if you can't afford $50, $60 a week in your business, then you probably shouldn't be starting a business yet. You've got to be able to invest in yourself. You've got to be able to invest in your business. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks for all of you guys who joined us today. I think this was really fun to get a little bit deeper and maybe kind of talk about some of the harder parts too, you know, of building a team, because it's not a perfect process, right? We're all going to make mistakes along the way, and you have to just sort of get through people to make sure you build the right team that you're looking for your business. So thank you. That was really eloquently stated, Jason. I really appreciate that.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And so just for everybody, this is obviously a new time that we're at. We're going to be doing these once a week now, Wednesday mornings at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. I'm going to be posting also just how these are going to work. Each week is going to be themed with something different. Next week, we're going to be talking about, you know, housing update, clients, people that we're able to help. There'll be, you know, a specific live that's going to be dedicated to you folks so that we can help you better. And then after that, we'll be talking about business entrepreneurship, growing teams, different things like that. So I'm going to be posting something out on that on Facebook and also on our team site, our website, and then Instagram is also a really good place for our before and after pictures. And then also YouTube. If you have certain questions, I know sometimes it's hard to thumb through these lives and find the answers to the questions that you have. So if you have questions that you just want answered in a 45 to 60-second stint, send them my way. I'll post them on our YouTube channel, and then you can go there anytime. We have a lot of stuff posted there now. So take a look at those things. And next time, like I said, next week, we will be on Wednesday at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. And we look forward to seeing you guys then. Thanks so much for for coming on, Jason. I appreciate everything you did, and I'm sure I will talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for having me. You guys listen to her. She's a rock star.
Thanks, Jason.